Oh, fuck. That's the only efficient roadblock they ever do. Yeah, and it's busted, but that's the only efficient roadblock they ever do because it's for the story. What a way for Black Box Games to go out with this. I mean, it has its flaws. They worked on a couple Need for Speed, a couple Burnout games, and then this was their last game. And what a way for them to go out. I love this game incredibly. And I'm mad that when EA discontinued the servers, the autolog thing, which nobody really fucking cares about, although I did buy this game for a friend. He's in Australia, so that we kind of compete with each other on who has the better scores, because he plays a lot of racing games. Well, because he's in Australia, it can't like compare to mine, which I don't understand. It's not like currency exchange rate. It's the same score, same, I don't know, but and then they discontinued the autolog thing. They have the battle log thing with well, they discontinued it for this game. They have autolog for their racing games, battle log for their shooter games like Battlefield, and seem to struggle for knowing reason. Well, this game is horribly ported for PC. EA games have always been like that. When it's a console port to PC, they just, the setting, let me show you the settings here, how basic this is. Audio, race experience, film experience mix. Okay. This is louder cars. This is louder game sounds. I keep them in the middle. Race music, copyrighted music. Think of that. Have to turn it off. Like, stop putting copyright music in games if we have to have a streamer safe mode that signifies there's a problem. Yes, it's good to well, it's not good to team up with like this artist collaborated with Rockstar. So like, great, you know, you didn't need to. Now it just made the game a lot more complicated. 5.1 or stereo. And I know this is an older game, but PC performance high, and then in the main menu, high performance, low performance, and then in the main menu there's advanced settings, which is just so basic, like low, medium, high, ultra graphics. That's the settings right there. It is ridiculous. And they have battle log and autolog for their racing games and shooter games. Really what it is it's just a way to lock things behind a paywall, get skins, all that stuff. You know how it is. But it's annoying. And so they shut the servers off for this one, the autolog servers, which means I have to put it through a firewall in order to load the main menu, because it tries to connect to something that's no longer there. Modern Warfare had that problem too recently, when their servers went down and people were like, you can just play the main game. No, you can't, because I can't even connect to the servers in order to load the main menu to play the offline campaign. It's bullshit. I'm tired of seeing it in the industry. So let's get back to the game. The only efficient roadblock, because it's part of the story. And what a way for them to go out. I'm a huge fan of not just a single racing, but also quick time events. If we have to have NSFW in like a streamer safe mode in Cyberpunk or GTA Online, have to shut off all the music or something like that. Stop making games that we can't enjoy. Oh shit. I'm being arrested. Hang on. Oh, motherfucker, I got him. Yay, PC port. What did I tell you? Two actions to lift the leg and lower it. Oh, you know what bugs me about having to put this through a firewall as well in order for it to load the main menu? So I can't play multiplayer in this, which I don't really care about, except I could get better cars to use in the campaign if I played multiplayer and unlock them, but I can never get them. So half of the content of the game, or the cars at least, and that's what I hate about, that's one thing that the industry suffers from, is that when those licenses expire, which they will, Sony has that problem with their movies on PlayStation, which I never really got under. Why would you pay for the movies in the store? You know, get a DVD, or just, I don't know. I never, the only thing I've ever used my consoles for was a DVD player if I didn't have one. But their licenses expire on the movies and they're forced to remove them, even though you paid for them, and they won't refund your money. Same with here. Half of, like, they shut off the servers, half the content, if whether or not you ever got it. I mean, what if you have to reinstall the game? You can't load into your auto log that tracks your unlocking that stuff and gives it to you again. I mean, that's the whole game preservation thing in a nutshell. Nintendo's about it, or all about not doing it. You know, they look down on emulation, but I mean, we look down on you because everyone wants to just forget about the past, forget about the last console era, move towards the future, play what we have now, move towards the future. But they sell you a promise, an unreleased product, telling you that here's the buggy shit that we have now, play it. We may or may not fix it in the future and add more things, but you know, pay full price for what we're giving you. Pay full price for the 10% of the game that we're giving you, with the rest of the 90% possibly coming. Oh, and we're going to increase the price as well. So, like I said, the industry is no longer for the gamers. It's for the monies. You know, investors, they always scoffed at it, but then they saw it's really a great way to get invested in and get money and all that stuff. So, and we all know that never degrades the experience, right? Too many games, in my opinion, also force always online, then become impossible to play even single player portions. Exactly, that's what I was saying a minute ago. Call of Duty had that problem. Their servers went down, and this has happened for more times than just Call of Duty. Has had this repeated problem, as well as other games that went on board with this. Their servers go down, and people are like, you can just play the campaign. No, I can't, because I can't connect to the servers to load the main menu to select the offline mode. It's bullshit. And plus, like, hell, the PlayStation 4, I'm not mistaken, 5, I don't know about the Xbox, but they work the same way. Steam, I think, a little bit too. Depends on what you play. But in order to launch the game, it has to connect to the servers to check your license, you know, that you have this, to launch it. It's like, I mean, hell, it's just another way that you don't own your phone, you don't own your PC, you don't own your games, you don't own your console, you don't own your TV, you don't own your anything. You rent it. You rent everything. You own nothing. That's why I try not to buy digitally, go old school to this. Yeah, and you notice you're having to buy digitally more and more often, aren't you? I mean, hell, we were at GameStop today, and GameStop is suffering from their, you know, like, I don't know how to say it, but like, I was telling this to the person I was with, buy low, sell high. It's sort of, GameStop's got that sort of mentality. It's not buy low, sell high directly, but you know what I mean? And their years of that practice is finally catching up with them, as well as not, they're still trying to sell physical, even though they give you the codes, you know, the little, you buy a physical copy with a cardboard disc in it that has a code to redeem online. GameStop is failing to, I mean, hell, GameStop now, all they have is either digital only. They got a few, the one here, have a few physical copies, but most of their stores now, you know, like Pop Funko things and shirts and some consoles, nothing that, you know, nothing new, like Xbox One Series X or anything, but controllers, pre-owned stuff, and Switch, like, you know, it's drastically changed what they carry, because they're not what they can carry, because they're not keeping up with the industry. I mean, they are, but just not how they should be, and they're suffering because it's catching up with them. They're not keeping up with the industry, so their past is catching up with them, their practices. And you know, people are mad at GameStop. I don't want GameStop to collapse. I want them to pull through, but they really need to get their head out of their ass. I mean, hell, they also, a lot of them tend to bully their employees, and it's like a scam. You know, those phone call scams you get. That it's those people are trying to make their commission. They don't want to do it, but they have to make their commission. They have to make a certain number of sales in a day, even if they're, you know, GameStop's sort of the same way with all their warranties and fees and all other shit. And if they don't do what the boss thinks they should, then they'll verbally abuse them and call them at 3 a.m. and yell at them. Yeah, there's stories like this. Skyrim purchased the disc. Skyrim purchased the disc, forced onto Steam, and suddenly that disc was a dust collector. Exactly, and that's the other part. Like, if you were to give that game, if you have something that doesn't require the disc to play, just requires the disc to activate the code to activate your license, you know, so that you can play it, then you can trade in the game. But that pre-owned game that GameStop is selling doesn't have the code, so they'll try and make you buy a new one, you know, so that you get the code and can register your game. It's just, you're renting it. Marcus comes from a connected Chicago family. His passion for cars is funded by his uncle who calls all the shots beyond winning. Hey, I was reading that, motherfucker. That's another thing I wanted to talk about. It was like when you see, like, I didn't have time to read all that, you know? All these memes that say, like, you're waiting for the game to load, and then you realize for 20 minutes you've been waiting for the game to load, and you realize it says press A to continue. Yeah, that's stupid. But if all games did that, it wouldn't be so confusing. I'd much rather prefer that than, you know, trying to read something and it just cuts because it's done loading. I was still trying to read that, you know? Oh, shit. I don't like to look at this. They did that seamless transition to the cutscenes pretty well, don't they? Or from the cutscenes. It's like when a third character, like, remember there for a while it was always fade to black whenever it's a cutscene and gameplay in and out, it would fade to black. Now it's like once the cutscene's done, it like moves the camera and positions it. Like Uncharted showed this really well. If you play the Uncharted games, the first 3 are fade to black, then 4 is after the cutscene's done, it seamlessly transitions to behind your character. Batman does it as well. And I just realized they do the same thing here in a racing game. Transition way better than most. I know. I'm a huge fan of that. Now, as for earlier, we were talking about the story mode elements of this game, as well as quick time stuff, which I love in this game. Doesn't work for everyone, but it's really well done here. Madden NFL 20 had a story mode like called Long Shot, which was really good. I mean, it was about this character making it to the NFL, you know. And you didn't play full game. Every now and then it was cut scenes, you know, and dialogue choices, and you would play games. You wouldn't play full games, and there was one where like you're back in the 70s and stuff. You played like certain events, you know. Now MLB The Show tried to do this, but didn't really take advantage of how well Madden did it. You know, there was more like a road to the show. You're just making a bunch of repetitive decisions and playing games. Whereas Madden actually had a story, and I gotta say, it's one of the best stories I've ever played. It didn't feel, I mean, they used like actual coaches and stuff like that when they did it. It was so good that it got the next game, it got a sequel to the story, which I haven't played, but I loved how real it felt with the acting. It didn't feel like, I mean, I know that a lot of actors, like, they're so good, you know. This one, I mean, they weren't really, some of them were, but it just felt like you were actually, I don't know, it was a refreshing way. It was more like the script was just realistic rather than, okay, put it this way. I don't know if you know who Paul Greengrass is. He did United 9/11 and Captain Phillips and all that stuff. He did a couple of the Bourne movies. If you ever see his directing style, he uses a bunch of handheld stuff, but it doesn't look like the way the movie is portrayed. It's just like a bunch of stuff happening in real time. It's like you're there watching it play out through a window. You're just watching rather than keeping track with the story. You're just observing how it happened. It's really neat. You'd have to see some of his work to understand the difference. And it's the same way with the Madden. It didn't feel like, I mean, it was scripted, but it felt more like it was real. Back when Madden Sports Style had a soul. Well, I would argue at that point they didn't. They were still doing the whole Madden Ultimate franchise and all that stuff. You know, they were doing a lot of that shit. But it was nice to see a story mode in a sports game, which everyone was skeptical about. But I thought it was really well done. I got to play the second one at some point, but I don't know if I ever will. But yeah, I'm a big fan of story mode in a sports game. I think it should be more common, but so many of them just half-ass it, you know? 2K and NBA 2K and all that stuff did that same stuff, like the MLB The Show did, like a repetitive stuff, like, rather than actually feeling like you're watching a movie sort of story. Call of Duty, I like that they're starting, like, as Infinite Warfare came along, they were starting to use multiple angles of cutscenes, which really upped the game. Call of Duty I'm talking about, up the game. Yeah. But the campaign anyways. Everybody knows me. I'm big on a healthy blend of gameplay and cutscenes. That's why I like Heavy Rain and Beyond Two Souls and stuff like that, because they may be like 95% cutscenes, but there's gameplay in those cutscenes. So now Bethesda's unique because they have cutscenes. Well, they started doing sort of cutscenes with Fallout 4 in-game cutscenes, your character dialogue, but they didn't do it all the time. There are certain times where, like, remember Skyrim, when you're in Whiterun and you're talking to that little wizard or someone like that, not the king or whatever, the Jarl, but the guy to the side room that has all these jewels and stuff, and you go and talk to him, and it doesn't switch to cutscene. You stand there either in first or third person as they talk. Fallout 4 does the same thing, even though you have the dialogue camera. Farengar, yeah. Even though you have the dialogue camera, there are other parts in that game where you're in third or first person without a cutscene. And it's weird because well, I guess not so weird, but it makes it feel more immersive. It's refreshing. It's not so reliant on one or the other. Well, now, Skyrim, even with the most recent remaster, whatever, you know, it's still, like, it doesn't, like, okay, Fallout New Vegas or Fallout 3, when you enter a conversation, the entire game world behind you froze. Skyrim doesn't freeze. It kind of like semi-freezes. You can't get attacked during a dialogue, you know? You're centered on that person. Everyone else is walking around, but if there's a threat, you're not going to be affected by it. It's not going to cut off the conversation like a Deathclaw in Fallout 4. Hilarious fucking videos. I'm sure you've seen them too. Some of the funniest videos of a ghoul hitting Kate or a Deathclaw lurking in the background. It's hilarious. Back when Bethesda still had a soul, and I would argue that they didn't have much of one left, but Fallout 4 was probably, I mean, everything they've released since Fallout 4 was their last big title. Redfall, and Starfield coming up, we'll see. Maybe they can get back on their feet, but it's funny because Todd Howard said, this is the game with Fallout 76. This is the game we always wanted to make, but we never really knew how to make it. And then you get it. It's like it's buggy mess, you know? This is what you always wanted to make because you already did. Now it's just online. And you never knew quite how to make it. You still don't. So, Bethesda never understood Fallout. They bought the rights from, was it not ZeniMax? I can't remember who it was who made the first three. But it was never about, you know, the 40s America, the bombs never happened, and, you know, or they did happen and all that stuff, you know. It was never about that. It was retrofuturistic, something like that, rather than apocalyptic 40s. It wasn't about Dean Martin so much as the world. It wasn't so much about the lore so much as I don't fucking know, but when they bought it, they turned it into the 40s apocalypse that it is now, which I enjoy. But it's like if someone were to buy the rights of a Batman game and then turn it into Victorian times, you know, it's like, that's not what it was about. Okay, here, let me say this. Fallout 4 is about as true to Fallout's roots as the Outer Worlds is to Fallout. Obsidian did Fallout New Vegas and the Outer Worlds. They're similar, but drastically, you know, the lore is different. I would argue that their writing and lore is pretty good. I mean, it can be improved, but it's very nice. They don't need to work on their writing and lore so much as their quality gameplay and polish, you know? Now, certain things of Fallout 4 are great, like the weapon stuff, the modding and all that other stuff, the customization. That's great. The story's kind of lackluster. Then again, if you look at it, it always was, no matter the Fallout game or Skyrim. It's because it's more about not just the main story, but the plethora of things also that you can stumble upon. You're always pushed to discover something new, a new place. The problem that Mass Effect, I mean, that's just how it is. The problem that Mass Effect suffered with choice-based narrative games. You know, eventually, whether or not they went with the original ending that they had in mind, it suffers because you can have so many choices, but eventually you're going to have to whittle it down to a select few to end the story. Now, Fallout has a different method because, notice the little cutscenes only show you certain ones, although they end differently. They show you certain parts that happen in the world, but they don't show like every decision that you made and how it could. I mean, well, Mass Effect, when they say like a decision can have ripples throughout the galaxy, that would mean that there would be like hundreds of different branches based on each selection. Like if you did one thing differently halfway through, the ending will be entirely different. And that Heavy Rain is the one that got me in, like, really in love with cutscenes and choice-based narrative as well. I didn't think I'd like Mass Effect before I played it, and then I tried it, I'm like, this is my game. Telltale Games, BioWare, all that stuff suffer from so many choices, but no real way to whittle it, no real way to end it in hundreds of different ways. Hundreds of different choices can't end in 100 different ways. It has to be end in a select few. Fallout does that too. They do a little bit more sophisticated, showing certain areas and factions and characters, but they don't have like every branching, you know, they have multiple branching paths, but they don't have hundreds. Does that make sense? That's what choice-based narratives always suffer from. That's just how they have to be written. Your choices, like even in Mass Effect 3. Now, your choices had a lot of weight in Mass Effect 3. It just was structured weirdly because the game is coming to a close, so you have different dialogue. You know, you have extra dialogue that you didn't say. But now there are certain choices that didn't matter across every game in that franchise. But yeah, I think your choices had a lot more. Your choices mattered a lot more than they didn't, even in Mass Effect 3. Telltale can't be said the same. You know, it can't be said the same for them. They are very much and the choices that they track don't even really matter or aren't the one that gets imported either. And that's another thing. Like, I think, like when it comes to like Witcher saves and BioWare and all that stuff, like don't give me a gist of what the choices I made of what will, like, because they leave out a lot that were tracked and that will have an effect on your gameplay. Show me everything, you know? But Telltale definitely is like a Telltale games are more linear than they wanted you to believe. I want to see what the new Telltale puts out, if it's because God help us if they're doing the same shit they were a decade ago, right? Fix your formula. Yeah, you should have never come back. So yeah, they collapsed after the Walking Dead definitive or the Walking Dead final season, whatever. They collapsed for a year just because they couldn't keep up, and then and there's a bunch of other things happening as well. The people calling for it. So they filed for bankruptcy and collapsed, and then about a year or two ago at the Game Awards, they said we're coming back, with former developers and some other stuff, and now under like a new leadership or something like that. They're bringing us the Wolf Among Us season 2, as well as something based on the Expanse show. I think it's what is that on? It's not HBO Max. Amazon. I can't remember what the Expanse is on, but I need to watch it. It looks pretty good. They're doing one based on that, and I think they're doing something else, but I don't know. No Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones ended. Telltale Games had a Game of Thrones game, and based on your choices, it ended like it could end with Tyrion, Peter Dinklage, getting executed or something like that. It took place after the Red Wedding, which I think was in season 2 or something like that. You could hear them screaming Joffrey as he dies. He was poisoned, all that stuff. Had a lot of like Natalie Dormer and who did Cersei and all that stuff. Peter Dinklage reprised his role as Tyrion. Had a lot of big names involved in it, even though it's original story and original characters. Meeting those people, it was really good. Unfortunately, it ended while the show it ended in a way that was its own. Like one ending was Tyrion getting beheaded. While the show was like I don't know, on season 5, 6, something like that, it hadn't even concluded yet. So now I think they've pretty much prematurely wrote themselves into a hole that they're not going to be able to make a season 2 and get out of. That's another problem with games based on that stuff. No matter what ending you would get in that Game of Thrones game, it would conflict with the events of the rest of Game of Thrones. And yeah, there's something to be said about George R. R. Martin taking forever to write his stuff, but still, it's more about the nature of games written like that. So they're making an Expanse game. I do believe that the Expanse show is still going on. I could be wrong, but if it is, we might be seeing a repeat with the Expanse game that they plan on making. Time extended. Has anyone ever played Cruis'n Exotica? Like at the Pizza Parlor or on the Nintendo 64, and it's so weird that Pizza Parlors still are using like Nintendo 64 graphic games like Cruis'n Exotica. But every time you hit a checkpoint out of the game, you would hear the announcer, time extended. It's burned into my memory, and I have the game. There was Cruis'n Exotica, Cruis'n World, and Cruis'n USA. I think Cruis'n USA was the first one, you could tell, even though they're all on Nintendo 64. I think it was Cruis'n USA, and then it might have been Cruis'n World, and then Cruis'n Exotica. I can't remember. Cruis'n Exotica was the best one because you had like Mars and under the sea and prehistoric times with dinosaurs. It's so funny. You hit a triceratops and it explodes in a bunch of meat like hitting a cow. It's fun to play that as a kid in the Pizza Parlor. There was that, and then there was Hydro Thunder, and the great thing about that arcade thing was that it had 2 levers because you're on a jet ski. So the Star Wars Pod Racer did that too. They have it for the Nintendo 64, but it's just not the same without those little levers. It would control, that's how you steer. There was no steering wheel. Put the left up and the right down. You're turning to the right, I think. And then vice versa. It was really well done. But Cruis'n Exotica had a bunch of different maps. Like aliens on Mars and stuff like that. There were a bunch of funny things. And there were also weird cars, like a clown car, and then they had a semi, which the semi, by the way, just like 200 miles an hour. It was the one that everybody wanted. Plus, when you double tap the gas pedal or gas trigger or whatever, it did a wheelie. A semi at 200 miles an hour does a wheelie. It's a fun game. Time extended. And then when you cross the finish line, there'll be a bunch of girls in bikinis standing there, you know. A couple other guys that look like frat guys, and I'm pretty sure they had kegs on the side. But you would run the map, and then as you hit the finish line, it just dead stops. And you see the girls dancing, you know, it's like you definitely plowed right through those people. So, oh, let me show off the settings real quick. So, view cars. This is what I was talking about with the stupidity of this. So look at all these cars that I could have unlocked. I can't, like the signature edition stuff, but I can't get them because in order to be able to use them in the main story, the run, I have to unlock them first in multiplayer, which I can't connect to. A lot of death. Yeah, and here's more that are unlocked or that are locked. And a lot of them have better stats. Extras, enter cheat code, which there are none, by the way. There are no cheat codes, but they have that in there. Verify Need for Speed VIP status, which I have to connect for, which really is bullshit. Multiplayer, can't do a challenge series. That's just, you know, play certain sections. Settings, audio, gameplay, account management, display, screen resolution. Now, if I alt tab of this, even if I were to do it windowed, it's the same as full screen in windowed, okay? It's more or less full screen right now. If I alt tab of this, the music stops and it puts it right over my OBS, my streaming stuff, until I click on, I click on the desktop and then OBS, then it goes away and I can see my camera now. It's horribly ported is what I'm saying. But if I click on it again, it goes back to full screen. If I do windowed, it doesn't matter whether I alt tab or not, but it's full screen. Different monitor, advanced display settings. This is what you got. Low, medium, high, ultra. It's so basic. I don't want it to be so detailed. I don't want it to be tremendously in-depth and detailed like Rockstar's GTA, or not GTA, Red Dead Redemption 2 settings are. They're very... See, that's another thing that I have a problem with, is that games expect you to know a lot of the stuff in the graphic settings and adjust them accordingly to settings. But what if you don't? They really need to give a better explanation, clearer and better explanation of every setting and how it, with examples and what everything, you know, not just low, medium, high, ultra. I don't even know what this does. And then I go into something like Mass Effect Andromeda. Why isn't it running well? Because one setting is off, but I thought in other games it could be fine. So, but yeah, it's not entirely EA. Some of this isn't entirely EA's fault. It's the industry's, but I will say EA really has a bad time. It seems to be having always have a bad time when porting a console game, which this is, to PC. I mean, I don't know if porting is the right word. It came out on PC the same time as it did on consoles, but still, it's like, why does it seem to suffer on PC more than the consoles? Because consoles, it's so like you can run it on you can run it because you can't go in and change a lot of those settings. All right. So it's slap on and good to go using whatever the console's resources have, you know, like an Xbox Series X. PC is so much more customizable. That's my theory. Be sure to subscribe to this channel as well as follow me on Twitch if you want to catch the live streams. Thank you for watching. Keela Salai.